So this one's is a Prateek. I'm going to assume I'm saying this correctly, Prateek Tomar. So game artist is the title here. And it looks like it's a combination of materials and some modeling, and then it looks like an environment as well, and a weapon. So if we look at the weapon, we'll start with the weapon first. I guess, actually, before we start with the weapon, I wanted to say, like, when I look at this portfolio, game artist does make sense, because right now what I'm seeing is materials, props, an environment, and a weapon. I don't know, actually, is this a hydraulic jack? Dude, awesome. It's so interesting what people choose to model. I love it. Anyways, we're all creative in crazy ways. You'll see people, like, I modeled a toilet, check it out. And you're like, wow, that's a really good looking toilet. Yeah, so when I look at this portfolio, it says game artist. I'm like, all right, cool. We got some materials, a prop, an environment, and a weapon. So it's very broad. So the first thing I would say is which way are you wanting to go? It's all realistic looking, it looks like. And the direction, I think, is hard to tell right now. Do you want to be a props artist, or do you want to be an environment artist or a material artist? So let's kind of dig into these and just see where the skill level is at on current things. So right now, I think let's see here. Model in my spare time. I was reasonable for creating the high. Yeah. Okay. So you create a high poly. Oh man, I think this format will never go away. I think the only thing that could make this better is if you trim the sides off and then just made this full width. That way it was just this huge like scroll. But nice. I like this breakdown of the high poly. Low poly looks good. When we look at the wireframes, I'm going in. It's a little high here, and also a little high in here as well. You always want to think about poly count, like where are people actually going to see the difference in the poly count, right? So like, is the geometry that you've added actually influencing the silhouette at all? If you could remove it and we wouldn't be able to tell, then you probably don't need it there. And when it comes to the materials, I think material wise, it looks pretty good for like I don't know, this is 7 months ago, and it's the first prop on your portfolio. So I'm going to assume this is kind of where your skill level is at 7 months ago. So there's definitely some understanding of how to play with roughness to get the information to really sell a surface. And I think that's probably, while this is good, I think this is the starting of, okay, you get PBR. Now how do we make the wood material actually look like wood? Like what is happening with that wood surface that makes it look like the wood you would see on an actual AK-47? And understanding those elements and how to like push that detail is what will set your work apart from every other AK-47. You know what I mean? It's probably one of the more popular guns to model, other than like a Mac 10 or like an M4. But you can see as well when the weapon's in shadow, it becomes very flat. So there's understanding like what the surface does in shadow versus like what it does when the light reacts with it. How many here actually work in 3D? I mean, I've been working in 3D like in the industry for like 13 years. Is that right? No. Since 2007 is when I started in like a internship. But yeah, looking at your albedo, where your saturation is at, where your roughness is at based on the surface, right? What details you're wanting to pop out. Like you can see the way you've dealt with your roughness here. You can see the wood grain a bit more, even in the roughness, which is a really cool feature. Let's not get into math. Oh, dude. Math on stream, worst idea ever. But like, for example, this clip and the handle, or the grip, I should say, those actually feel like they're base texture right now. Like you haven't actually went in and tried to like actually detail it yet. Whereas these look like they've had like their second pass. Yeah. So, okay. So now when we look at environment wise, personal project art, I'm responsible for modeling and texturing and lighting. Is this a group project? Creating environment, took the challenge to finish it. Oh man, us artists and procrastination. It's brutal. We all fight it. And after a lot of sleepless nights, oh man. Yeah, Red, I think you're in a great channel. If you want to get into 3D, I mean, if you want to just hang out with us more, there's the Discord link for you. But overall, I would say this is looking pretty nice. There's a lot of like, this is 7 months ago as well. A lot of this is, so your lighting feels quite flat, and the balance of your materials varies when it comes to their saturation and like what they're doing. Ooh, oh, I'm liking what's happening here though. What's going on here? You see this wearing down on the edges and stuff? I need to understand how you set that up. Oh, these are nice too. Textures for the trees and boxweed from the ground are taken from mega scans. Amazing library. Nice. So you took the textures, but you still built the pieces, it sounds like. Ooh, this is cool too. Yeah, so I was going to say, like, you see all that little extra detail. The balance between these two, for example. This is very dark versus this being very light. I think if you go into unlit view, they should be very similar in their kind of value range to each other. And I think that would help. Oh man, this is cool. I think that would help with balancing between all of the elements and making sure that they all kind of read as they're coming from the same space. So like, if that's like the really aged, worn value that you're hitting, that should be aged and worn value on this should be very similar. Or these should be brought up to kind of like that, or like maybe in between, right? Because then you get into the territory where everything looks much more balanced, and then it's all about how your lighting is developing and kind of giving you the depth. So when I was saying your lighting feels a little flat, in this view specifically, I can actually, let me see here, this view. So this view is a great opportunity for like the back wall to be getting, like this whole area back here to be getting much darker. And it's only really relying on bounce lighting to fill this space. So like the less bounces that can happen, the darker you're going to get in areas. Oh, this is the ceilings. So the ceilings are darker as well. That's quite interesting. Yeah, so it's just a matter of balancing your materials, your albedo's value ranges, kind of sticking in the same range. Hey, Nick, have a good one, man. Enjoy your evening. And really just kind of bringing everything together, because your attention to detail is quite high here. And I honestly, I think when I see this versus your weapon, this is actually impressing me more, because your attention to detail, like I was saying, and the way you're incorporating the elements together is really good. Looks like real-time lighting from Unity. It says Unreal, and I like when we look at the foliage, you can see in shadow you're getting that ambient occlusion. See that kind of depth and value that you're getting inside of there. Getting that in these back areas, oh man, that would do wonders. Because like right now it feels really strange that you see how dark these get, but then in direct light, how light they become. Bringing these closer to like even the darkest area being lighter is going to feel more natural. And if there's ways to make the trimmed shrubbery or bushes a little bit more irregular on the top, maybe with soft selection, you can kind of like vary the tops a bit more. Are you taking any questions today, or are you doing portfolio? I mean, if you guys If you got questions, throw them in here, man. I can answer them between the reviews as well. But yeah, I mean, like if I grab this one, let me just go to Photoshop here, and I'll just do a new, paste that. So if we go black and white or grayscale, you can see like how, if we zoom out, you can see how flat that is. Oops. And if we were to just take this whole side area, I'm just gonna like, how would I do this? Like push that down, right? Maybe it's not so dark, but just doing that alone has done a lot, I think, when it comes to like how this is all being perceived, right? And if you can get that even darker in like this upper area, just like, I don't know, maybe multiply, but then really drop it. Like faking that lighting, huge difference, and it gives you that separation. The only other thing I would comment on in this type of stuff is like, so there's two things. It's the albedo, like I was saying, but you can see like the color of this fountain being like a warmer color to the rest. I think adding some type of a color to your surfaces is more interesting than like a like no saturation kind of effect. The next thing I would say is like where your materials match up. So like if we were to go and just, I'm just gonna do, oh, click this. So like this edge here is a very strange, like you've got these patterns going into this edge. That's really weird, right? Finding ways to model, like even if it's just like UV mapping this type of brick smaller, but on the edge here, would go a long way for helping transition from the top to the side to then to the ground. And you can see on the ground, it's the same problem. All you need to do is take this type of shape and put it here to help you transition to whatever's happening on the ground here. And like when you look in the hallway, it's just continuous. Any opportunity you have to break up the pattern on the ground in a way that looks like it's been designed or is intentional will help you to make the space look more natural and not just this continuous pattern that keeps going. You're doing a good job of hiding the tiling, but think about it in the way that like how they would actually build their floor out. Hey Visual, good to see you. Happy end of the year to you. But yeah, figuring out how to like hide these types of transitions is going to be important. Let me see what else we got going on here before I. So the next thing is this hydraulic jack. So that last environment looked, or your environment that's in your portfolio looked really good. This one looks like, again, you're looking at really like specific details and really trying to tell a story in the surfaces, which is really, really nice feature. It's a good skill to have to get that type of detail in, or to be thinking about that and actually executing on it. When we look at this asset, so at least from a presentation standpoint, watch out for these tangent lines with the frame. Be careful to not like let it go outside or like touch the edge. Those are things that stress me out. I don't know why. It's just tangents, man. Tangents get me. It's the same with the tiles that we were looking at on the floor. Those are tangents. Easy, what's up, man? Yo yo. This high poly modeling is so small for visibility. I guess if I click it, no, it'd be a little bigger. But these are the things I would love to see larger. And like getting like we have renders from so many different angles, and I think you get scrolling fatigue by seeing so much stuff going on, and like what's happening on like this side of the thing and this side of the thing. getting that to be a little bit more like, okay, this is the top view, 3/4 view, side view. And then like, that's all we really, I guess, need, right? Because you don't want to have people not ever get to your high poly and like how your output maps looked and all that. You want them to actually get to this stuff. Like I love seeing UV sets now and seeing how people are managing their UV sets. If there's a way to highlight areas where you're doing reuse, that's really good. Oh, we've got some interactivity here as well. So this looks like it's all 0 to 1. Is a really high triangle count. I'm going to just do this so we can look at this really fast. How is it? Hang on. I guess it's because there's so many round shapes. Because you're saying the tri count's 14,000. I guess that makes sense with all of the round shapes that we're looking at. So it's within, I would say this is within reason given the details that you're trying to portray. The material type for this wheel feels really strange to me. That it's like, it doesn't look like, it feels like this material, which if those are the same, then cool. But if not, then I guess that's a little strange, right? Oof, that is cool. So your materials are really interesting. I'd be really careful with going a little too noise heavy when you get into like the rustier bits. Keep it really minimal on the strength, or just like in very specific key spots that it gets really intense. But I mean, it is a cool asset. It's just, I want to see like the output maps. Those are all right to see. It's seeing these, the actual like what your roughness look like and your metalness. Those are the things that intrigue me the most. And seeing what your normal map bakes look like, it shows me where there's errors that like, oh, that's why that is rendering like that. Oh, that's a easy thing to fix. And or, oh wow, this person doesn't really understand metalness yet, right? So there's those types of things to highlight, because then I can actually maybe I can actually give feedback. But that asset looks pretty good. I mean, I think, wait, what was the date on that one? This one was 6 months ago. And then you started diving into materials, it looks like, which to me is totally fine. I don't have anything against materials or like someone who's doing props, environments, weapons, and metalness equals gray, right? No, Exile, no. Don't you dare. The thing I want to highlight or to say that we should watch out for is spreading yourself too thin to be able to make the gains that you're wanting to feel like you're making. So you make a weapon. I'm sure this is not your first weapon because your modeling is quite good. So all of those gains happened to get to this point to make a weapon look like that, right? But instead of focusing on pushing your materials further on the next weapon you make, you're now like, okay, I'm going to make an environment. And this isn't anything against you, Prateek, but like, it's the example of spreading yourself very thin. Like this environment's pretty cool. There's a lot of stuff that you can improve on for your next environment, right? But if you're starting with materials, now you're starting at like, let's say you're just doing materials for the first time. Now you're starting at the bottom there and working your way up to a certain level. And then if you switch back to environments, maybe you've either forgotten some stuff or you're, or you have to get up to speed on what you were doing and how you were doing things. It's like changing gears in your mind, right? And so if you can focus on one aspect of developing your portfolio, that's where you end up benefiting the most, is because now everything is growing towards that point. That pathway is the path of least resistance for feeling progress, I guess is the better way to say it. But yeah, for me, it's like, okay, I see there's materials in your portfolio, but I'll be extremely honest, and I do not want this to come off as like very harsh. Oh, wow, you're very organized. There's some nodes you're not using anymore. You could delete those, but I like how organized you are on your process. But what I wanted to say about seeing materials is when they're at a certain level, or they're of materials that are very simple. You sent the question in Discord. Oh, okay, cool. Cool. I can get to that, Adele. When materials are at a certain level, or they're of a material that's usually pretty simple visually, even in real life, I'm like to me, I wouldn't click on any of these. Maybe I'd click on this one because I want to see how your leaves are transitioning on the surfaces. Like, this is starting to get a little bit more complex. But like, for example, I know what marble looks like, you know what I mean? And making marble in Designer, I can't imagine what that's like. But I know that the end result will be that it looks like marble, you know? So it's about picking the right materials that you want to put in your portfolio when it comes to, well, right materials, when it comes to showing that you're understanding or wanting to be a material artist. For me, wanting to see the stuff on your portfolio for a material artist is me wanting to see things like something being really strange. Like, oh, I made this material that's just a pile of like sour gummy bears. If you can make that look right, that's crazy. Or like when you see people make material balls that actually just look like ice cream types. Like, that's so interesting to me because you're having to solve and think about very specific things in order to get that look. Like, it's melting, so there's a bit of gravity to the ice cream. There's, an ice cream scooper made that ice cream sphere, if you want to say it like that. And so that would show in the surface. Like, how are you getting those looks to happen? For me, marble is just marbling. I guess the best marbling looking materials are going to be the materials where I go, oh yeah, that does look like marble. And then I guess that would be it, right? But if it was like marble that maybe took some bullets, it was part of a wall or something, or there's more intricate like inlaid details around the marble, then I'm like, ooh, I'm curious. I want to see how far it goes. Let's see if we can see. For me, these are like, this shows very early understanding of creating bricks and the damage that's on the edges. I remember being in this phase, and I bet if I were to jump back into Designer today, I would be right back here and would have to relearn how to do what I'm doing. But yeah, it's those elements, I think, that will either draw or deny people looking when it comes to materials on a portfolio. But I mean, given all this, when I look at this portfolio overall, I would say your hydraulic jack looks pretty promising material-wise. It's really interesting, and the modeling is good. Your modeling skills are quite good as well. And your environment, this fountain piece, this is, I feel like, at least when I look at these three things here, or four if you want to say it like that, this environment is really popping out, and it's more about like pushing your lighting to give you the depth and the range that we're missing. But yeah, cool. Hopefully that was helpful, and I'll make sure to get this to you. And if you have any questions, you have me in Discord, and we have our little chat for this portfolio group as well. Nice.